area around Death Valley, there are a lot of hot springs, a lot of volcanoes, a lot of that kind of activity. Speaking of which, they actually had an earthquake in Tonopah. I think it was just a week or two ago. Like a fairly major quake. I think it was like a 5 or maybe a 6. I just got a text. Enough that it surprised people. Because they don't get, the lava and the hot springs in the volcano, the volcanic activity tell you, yeah, it's an active area for tectonics. But they don't get a lot of earthquakes here, so it's kind of strange to see that. Who knows what that means? Maybe there's going to be one of these extinct volcanoes is going to come back to life. Well, here I was just talking about how there's never anybody on this road. They get stuck behind trucks. Of course, okay, actually this might be Coaldale. So this is actually where I've seen the horses in the past. So I keep an eye out for them. I don't see any near the... Oh, look at that. They're over there. Now, you can't see them, but they're off to the left. There's somebody parked in their car looking at them. But there's 4 of them out there. I don't see any more. So that's got to be the same group, because the last time I was through here, I saw 3 or 4 of them. It must have been 4. But there's the wild horses. I saw them again. That's pretty cool. So there you go. If you want to see wild horses, drive on Route 6 into Coaldale, and they're probably going to be around. Just keep your eyes open as you're approaching State Highway 360, and we're still 20 miles from Coaldale, but there's not much else for a waypoint here. That junction actually right there is named something. I want to say it starts with an L. I know that it's like Lee or Les or something like that. There's a couple more horses out there. So yeah, this is all open range. This is, the back there they had a fence, but right here it's all fenceless. So it's open range. The horses can roam around as they wish. So it's pretty cool to see. There's something, obviously, I'm not a poet about it. I'm not going to be able to be poetic about it. It's something kind of intrinsic to the American spirit. Wild horses and Mustangs. Obviously, I feel like a lot of it probably has to do with the car, the Ford Mustang. It's become such an iconic American car. It seems like more for foreigners than for Americans themselves. I feel like Americans kind of vary on what they think is the quintessential American car. But it's something very cool about seeing them. So if you're curious where they came from, it's the typical story where somebody's horses got away. Oh man, there's 3 more of them out there. Wow, there's a lot of them. So evidently this is a good time to come out to see these things, because there's 3 more horses out there. Huh. Well, that's pretty lucky. I don't think I've ever seen that many, nor did I ever think I would see that many. So I'm just gonna keep my eyes peeled for more. This is evidently a really good time to see them. I don't know that I've ever driven on this road at this time of night. Let me get around this guy real quick. If I can. Yeah, okay. Up to 90. No passing zone. That's how I roll. It's actually probably the fastest I've ever gotten this car up to. 90 miles an hour. Yeah, this might end it for the horses. This doesn't look like a very horse-friendly environment, does it? Not at all. There goes Monroe County. Sorry, I'm just drinking yeah, there you go, Basalt. Or however you say it, Basalt. That's what that mine is. That's what's funny about Nevada is, I guess it's resource rich. You'll just be kind of driving around and there's just random mines, power plants. They're just kind of off by themselves. That's actually the road I'm probably going to be taking back. It's Fish Lake. Going through Fish Lake. There's a couple of ghost towns down there. Another cool site, actually, if you can see off to the left, that is an old telegraph line. Actually, I wanted to talk about that. Now, this is one of those things I'm gonna talk about. Now I'm gonna look it up and figure out I was wrong. But as I recall, this portion of US 6 was an old railroad grade. They had built it between Tonopah and Benton or Bishop, or there's another town near Bishop that I don't remember the name of. It was once more important. It was a big railroad town. But anyway, that was Tonopah was always a big mining town, and it's always been very isolated. So they built railroads into it and out of it to get the materials out. And over time, that became less feasible. So actually, yeah, I kind of see. Maybe not. I'm trying to see if I can see like the grade from the railroad. I don't know. But with that old telegraph line, that kind of seems like they had a railroad up at one time. It's cool though. You can see the little. Sorry, been driving too long. They don't have any wires attached, and you can see the little glass. I don't even remember what they're called. The glass things that conduct the wires. You can see those are still on the left side at least. So that's always kind of fun to see. I feel like that's one of those things that in 50 years it's very likely going to be gone. You're not going to be able to see something like that. Maybe I'll be wrong. I mean, obviously, the desert is good at preserving things. That's, glass is pretty easy to preserve. It's pretty durable. I mean, I've found glass and even porcelain, that was over 100 years old just in the dust, just in the dirt. It lasts a long time. It wears down a little bit, like if there's a logo etched into it. And I'm talking about glass. There's a logo or something, a name or something, a date etched into it. That will wear down. The sand kind of gets into it, kind of rinse it out. But overall, the glass stays intact. So so who knows? Maybe those will be around still. We'll see. Obviously, I won't be around in 100 years, probably 50 years. So the telegraph line had other ideas of where I wanted to go. And I believe this is one of the sections of Route 6 that was bypassed later. Not down there in the canyon, but I think over to the left of this hill. I could be wrong about that. There is one. There's several sections of that throughout Nevada where Route 6 was, when it's, and sometimes not even Route 6, but the precursor to Route 6, which was a Nevada State Highway or even an auto trail. The route followed a road to avoid mountains, whereas when at some point construction crews just blasted through the mountains, just like they did right there. telegraph line right there. That's just cool to see. It's funny to me to think of somebody, 100 years ago, more than 100 years ago now, 150 years ago, coming out here and trying to put up telegraph lines, with no road, and having to, and it's not like they could chop down trees from nearby. They could probably only work in the winter and had to haul all the logs in. If there was a train track through here before, I'm sure that made it a lot easier, but still, it would have been pretty rough work. It took them a long time to do it. I get a nice view there, huh? I'm trying to remember the name of those mountains, and I don't know. No idea what those mountains are. Unfortunately, I brought a good paper California map with me. The last time I came out into the desert like this, I didn't bring one. I regretted it. I got up into an area where I'd only been up there once before, so I wasn't completely familiar with the roads, and I ended up going the right way, but there was less signage than I was expecting. I ended up getting kind of turned around and thought I was going the wrong way for a little while. So this time I brought the California map. Unfortunately, I don't have a Nevada map. The way the world is now, there's not a lot of bookstores left. And I know that I could go into a Barnes & Noble and buy a Nevada benchmark atlas. I've seen them before. I've seen them in Arizona. I know I've seen them in California. But there's no Barnes & Noble near me. Independent bookstores are great, but they're not likely to have that kind of selection. Like I could probably call, there's a couple of little bitty bookstores in Monterey, and then there's a bigger one in Santa Cruz, and I could call them, but I think it's very low the chances of them actually having one. And really, if I had to drive to Santa Cruz to get it, I may as well just order it or drive to wherever the nearest Barnes & Noble is. Maybe Gilroy. I actually don't know where it is. Probably Gilroy. That's just kind of the way the world is working right now. Doing, not using cruise control like a sucker. This is the perfect road for cruise control. So anyways, this is pretty, I don't want to call it boring because the mountains are interesting and the desert's nice, but as far as Route 6 goes, the western portion I think is a lot less interesting than the eastern portion. Now granted, the eastern portion, when you get around Ely, and especially going towards Great Basin National Park, it's really nice and mountainous. There's some really big mountains out there. There's some lakes and forests, stuff like that. So this is a little dull for US 16s. I think you can look at this. If you were planning on doing a Route 6 trip where you drove it across the country, you might look at this on a map and think, oh, this is going to be the worst part. This is going to be the most boring stretch. I don't think it is by any means. I can think of at least 3 different stretches of Route 6 that are a lot more boring than this. I think it's just people's misconceptions about things, and kind of how you look at it. If you want to see lots of towns, yeah, it's not gonna be able to help you because there's no towns. But as far as scenery, it's interesting. It's, especially in this light, you can really see the. Oops. Sometimes I confuse the cruise up button and the track up button. That's okay. Actually, light has been very nice. It really espouses the colors. It brings out the colors of the mountains. Look at, I mean, you look at that one. It's just interesting to me how it looks. I guess geologists probably tell me it's exposing the different formations, but it's just interesting to see the red, the tan, and the black, just kind of all, almost like little pieces that you can pull out, and just a little bit of blending, merging, where they come together. Nice about this area is you can kind of, Creosote's a little smaller here, and you can kind of make your own roads out there. It's just kind of a gravel. It's not as I've driven on that before, and it's not as solid as it looks. It kind of cracks, but you can still drive on it. Obviously you got to be careful for sandy patches. I wouldn't necessarily drive over a creosote bush, but you can. My car is much better than doing it. I have pretty low clearance on this car, which is one of my only complaints about this car. But kind of keeps me off of dirt roads, which is not necessarily a bad thing. I don't need to be driving around especially a sedan, driving around on dirt roads. But you need a little bit more clearance to be able to drive on dirt roads most of the time. And that's definitely a piece of advice I can impart to people, just kind of, especially if you're younger, you're just kind of getting into just driving around, exploring kind of random places, don't trust the maps on dirt roads. Don't trust that your vehicle is necessarily going to make it on a dirt road. You really kind of gotta. I feel like it's hard to explain. I've gotten to the point where I can look at a satellite view of a dirt road and get a good idea of it, as long as it's not covered by trees. Get a good idea of what I'm in for as far as driving. It's just like when I went out to the Nevada test site with the Project Faultless site in the desert. That's all. There's no paved roads out there, so it's. I spent a lot of time researching it, trying to. There's no paved roads and there's no street view, so you just got to kind of go for it. Try to make your own decisions on it, and also know when to turn around. If your car starts bottoming out, you hit sandy patches, unless you're pretty certain this is an isolated area because of a wash, which happens sometimes on dirt roads, then you probably should turn around at that point, because the road is just going to get worse, and you're likely to get stuck. And that's the last thing you want, especially a region like this where there's a lot of land, which also means there's a lot of roads. And because there's a lot of land and roads, there's not a lot of people driving on those roads. So getting stuck for a long period